allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Picaro, what are we doing this morning? Oh, yeah, I gotta do that. The mission of the mission of the Charter School Advisory Board. The Charter School Advisory Board works to ensure the existence of high-quality charter schools in North Carolina. The ethics statement. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the advisory board. Does any member of the advisory board know of any conflict of interest or an appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. If during the course of the meeting you become aware of an actual or apparent conflict of interest, please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter.
Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Ashley Becerra from the Office of Charter Schools. We have a presentation this morning from Hobgood Charter School. This is one of our newer charter schools. Some of you, I think, were on the board when this application was approved, and they came before you and the state board, I believe, a year or two ago, and requested to expand to high school. And as part of that approval, they were asked to come back and report on the progress and how they are doing. So we have the school leader with us today. Ms. Harris, you ready to go?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just a second to pull my notes up. I also have with me our board chair, Mr. Joe McDowell, just along for moral support probably as much as anything. Okay, sure will. We are super excited to actually be here this morning. Last time I can't say that maybe we were so excited we were very nervous. But it's great to be back and to have an opportunity to share with you the things that we've been able to accomplish in our 2.5 now years that we've been open. I wanted to share some of these initial pictures with you just because most people have never heard of Hobgood. Most people will probably never travel through Hobgood. And so there's a bird's eye view, literally, of what Hobgood looks like. And very small town, very rural, down at the southern end of Halifax County, right where Martin County and Edgecombe County adjoin. So we are pretty much really out in the middle of nowhere. But we've got a nice little facility and school going, and we're very proud of ourselves and the things that we've been able to accomplish. Go ahead to the next one. So our school mission states that we are committed to a holistic approach for our children, academically, physically, emotionally, socially. We do a lot of focus on small group instruction. Being a K now through 10th school, big emphasis on the multi-age group collaboration, a lot of community involvement, and just really trying to make sure that our students, when they leave us, are set for patterns of healthy lifelong learning. And the pictures that you see there, I always think of, pictures are worth 1,000 words. And so we have tried to make sure that we are providing for these rural students as many outside opportunities as we can. So, our younger children are learning how to play the keyboard, learning how to play recorders. We were integrating all of the STEAM types of activities, lots of art, and also, outdoor learning experiences. So we've got outdoor learning, our outdoor gardens, and with that, we've got our horticulture classes in high school working with our younger children to teach them about gardening and plant growth and stuff. So really cool to have all of those age groups on the same campus to help them collaborate and coordinate and give those older students an opportunity to really be role models and share what they're learning with the younger students. So this just shows sort of our enrollment trends over the last 3 years. Our initial ADM was 225 students. The following year, we grew to 276. This current year, we are at 326. And the chart that you're seeing there shows, the different breakdowns of different areas and subgroups and how we are continuing to work and to grow there. When you look at, we are part of the NC Access Grant, and so, this is something that we are, of course, carefully monitoring, which we would monitor anyway, but, I'm very pleased when you look at the growth in the number of students that are in that educationally disadvantaged category, to see that, we've gone from growing plus 10 to a plus 58. And so I feel like the efforts that we are making to really make sure we are reaching out to a variety of the different communities and our populations, and specifically populations that we are strategically targeting. I think that it shows that we are making some great efforts there. In a rural area, it seems to be that word of mouth from our families tends to be the best way for us to grow. And, and we knew starting as a new school that it would take time to build trust with some of the communities and families, but we feel like we are making a lot of headway and making some great gains in those areas. This next slide shows, due to when we opened and then now where we are, we've had very limited state data because we didn't even get through the first year to get any state testing done. So this past year is our first year of official statewide testing with EOGs and EOCs, and there's still a lot of work to be done, but we feel really good about our start. Considering that we've gotten children in from lots of different places, lots of different school districts, and then pushing through a pandemic, trying to get everybody sort of leveled out and on the same playing field, those stats look okay to me. And obviously, like I said, we've got room to grow, as everybody does, but we feel like we are off to a good, solid start. When I'm working with our teachers and providing professional development, the things that I encourage them to focus on are making sure, oral language development with your little children, early math concepts, those collaboration opportunities, and then small group instruction. And those are the key factors that we push. And so if you walk into our school building, that is what you see. You see children working in small groups. You see teachers pulling kids, because that's where we know based on the research where you get your biggest bang for your buck. You can go ahead to the next slide. As far as looking at school culture, especially as we moved our middle schoolers up into high school for these first 2 years, one of the big things is, kids are very into athletics, and we wanted to make sure that we had provided opportunities for students, not just academically, but also athletically. And so this year we actually were able to kick off our first season of football. We've got middle school and varsity, JV and varsity basketball. We've got cross country being offered, softball and baseball. So we've been able to really push off the sports in a pretty quick manner. Had a lot of outside support, community support for that, a lot of parents jumping in and helping. We have a very strong athletic booster organization that is really pitching in to make sure that, kids have the things that they need and that they are very well supported. And then, another looking at school culture, and I had to include this picture. So the picture that you see on the left is one of our moms, and those are her 3 children that attend our school. And she had these sweatshirts made for her kids, and it says, "This kid loves Hobgood Charter School." And I absolutely adore it. They all wear it on the same day. And this was actually a picture from the Scotland Net Christmas Parade. They came and participated in that with us. And again, what we're finding is that the more that we are out in communities and parents are beginning to share, well, this is where my child goes to school, that's where we are really getting and being able to really increase the diversity in our schools. We have a very active parent organization who just does amazing things for our school. Some of the other things as far as looking at school culture that we are really big on is service projects, because I feel like it is so important for children to understand where things come from in their community, who supports them, and then be able to give back to them. And so every grade level in our school participates in some sort of service project. We also have started off, finally gotten our feet under us to get our Senior Beta Club going this year. We had 6 students that were inducted. Junior Beta Club and additional Senior Beta Club students are going to be inducted in the spring. Our 6 girls are going to get to go to the conference this winter, so we're very excited about that. And I just feel like overall we've been able to really and truly, it's tackling a beast to get this up and going. And I am very thankful that when we first came, because we initially applied as K-12, and I am so thankful that you all put the brakes on and said, hold off to K-8, get yourselves going, and then build, because high school is its own bear. And when you start pulling in, that's what we're finding, when we start getting in kids that have already started a high school track, and especially as we've gone through this pandemic, and kids have been virtual and have lost so much, trying to integrate those kids into our school and sort of the track that we're pushing kids through is difficult, and you have to be very strategic, but we've been very successful with that. We have been able to pull. This past semester we had our math teacher, our high school math teacher, and he had 3 children, and that was a course, and they were going back through Math 1, and those kids were very successful. We had one student who had come to us from another school. He scored a level 1. This time he scored a level 4 on his Math 1. So, I feel like we're doing some good work, and we're making a huge impact in that particular area. With our students and with our families, and we are excited to continue to be able to give children that opportunity, and I cannot wait to have that first class of kids walk across the stage and be able to shake their hands and tell them congratulations. Do you have any questions? Or
How many high school students do you have?
high school students right now, we have 19 in our 10th grade class and 22 in our 9th grade class.
And what's your capacity at your location, K-12?
So we are in the process of, and Joe, you may want to speak to some of this, we're actually in the process of preparing to expand and to build an additional building, at least one additional building. We're working on pulling on modulars to get us through in the meantime, but that's the foresight, and we're working through that process to make sure that there's space for everybody.
How many counties are you pulling from in your school?
So for us, the majority of our students come from Halifax and Martin counties. We do have some students that come from Edgecombe, I think we have 3 that come from Beaufort, and maybe 1 from Nash County. Oh, and yes, we do have a handful from Pitt. But it's, we are.
3 counties completely come together and not very far to a couple other counties.
Yeah. So it's accessible to lots of different places as opposed to being smack dab in the middle of one county.
Right.
High school is a beast.
Yes, it is.
It is, especially in those early years, because you just said you had how many in 9th and 10th?
19 in 10th and 22 in 9th.
Yeah, those early years, because staffing.
Yes.
So how are you thinking about that with regard to growth, considering in high school how many, you just need a lot of specialized teachers?
Right. So at this point, we have teachers for social studies, all the social studies content. We have our science folks, our math people. It's just a matter of how much time they are serving in the school right now. And so, we're prepared, and they are prepared to add on time as we continue to grow. And we've got other people who are chomping at the bit, ready to join ranks.
Well, I didn't mean necessarily recruitment.
Right.
I imagine you've done some work in just projecting the staff you're going to need,
Sure.
right? We did so much math stuff in our middle school, but in our first and second year of high school, we needed like 5 or 6 different math courses.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was 3 or 4 teachers, but that's a lot for 2
Right.
cohorts.
Right.
As we projected it out, we realized how we would have to grow in order to both afford and recruit that many teachers. So I guess you have a relatively small amount of kids, but they're going to have a lot of different course needs
Sure.
as you grow. So
Sure.
what do you? I mean, are you thinking more virtual? Are you thinking? How are you thinking? How are you going to supply those needs?
So we are pretty much serving all of our children face to face. The instructors that we have are versatile in what they're able to teach and have taught for years and years. And, you know, if we should foresee a need, you know, there are absolutely virtual options. But at this point, we feel like we've got the manpower to be able to manage it.
How are you managing electives? How are you providing electives?
So with our electives, right now, because of numbers and the way that we're able to schedule, our current staff we've been able to accommodate those needs. So we've got, you know, like I said, the horticulture, everything from the PEs, the weightlifting, art, music, all of those specialty areas. And, you know, a lot of what we're doing right now is polling our children to find out, so what are you interested in? What would you like to see us offer? And then from there, that, you know, I feel like that's my job, is to find those people to help plug in. You know, in our area, there are a lot of people with a lot of specialized types of training who are very interested in coming in to support our students. And so that's really what I'm trying to do, is to look at, you know, who's got expertise and who's done this before, who's retired and would like to, you know, a little bit more. And so we've pulled a lot of retired teachers in to, you know, to support our students.
To Eric's point, that becomes, we also started a high school, first graduating class was 34, so I get it.
Right.
Providing those elective opportunities, your social studies teacher, can teach all social studies.
Sure.
If you have a general science teacher, they can teach all science.
Right.
But when the business teacher can't teach art.
Right.
And so providing those kinds of opportunities so that your students even though there are not a lot of them, they still have to have a full high school
Absolutely.
experience.
And they do. The art teacher that we have, she's able to serve our younger ones. And we know within the next 2 years, you know, we've got to add an additional, at least part-time person to come in to fill in some of those gaps and slots, and really take a look at the staff that we have. Where do you prefer to specify? But, you know, again, you know, the people that we have on board are very versatile, very flexible, and, you know, are willing to do, you know, what they need to do to serve our students. And that, you know, when they're, and you all know this, when they've been on campus with you for X number of years, you build those relationships and bonds, and you start to figure it out, and, you know, what kids need and want, and who does well with what, and then we're able to just talk, and, you know, it's sort of like that ball of clay, and you just continue to mold it and make it be what you need it to be.
Is there a community college near you?
Absolutely, and we have already established a partnership with Edgecombe Community and with Martin Community. Those are the two closest to our school, and the plans are for next year for our students to be able to, as juniors, begin to enroll in courses.
Because leveraging that will help a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
If I may interject, because she won't toot her own horn. When we first started, and we were not smart enough to know that what we wanted to do wasn't really possible, and so we just plowed ahead. But one of the things I found is the board chair during that first year is that we didn't know if we were going to get up to our break-even point. And part of our concerns as board members is we didn't know what we were going to do for staff. Turns out I didn't need to worry about that when we hired this lead administrator, because she has pulled in some exceptional staff through many different areas, and we've had great staff retention, and we've had staff that wanted to be in the classroom and teaching these kids and not wanting to do virtual. Even though we did have to pivot to virtual, we were doing some of each. So she's been great about getting people in, and a lot of people in our community want to be part of this school in whatever way they can serve, so that's been great. The second thing is, I'm pretty fiscally conservative, and I was worried from the get-go about the finances. We've been very conservative on finances and saved money for a rainy day. We've been working towards accumulating money so that we could expand our campus in high school, like so many of y'all, concern me because I know the ratio of teachers to students is going to be different. So we've made, I think, a lot of headway financially to make sure that we can weather that easily.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming back. It's always nice when you come back and what you said you were going to do is working.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we appreciate that.
Thank you, and thank you all for taking time to hear us and ask those questions. And, you know, it's always great to hear the questions back and to get the feedback and more things to think on. So I always appreciate and welcome feedback from you all.
Yeah, we appreciate so much, Dave, in your office.
Absolutely.
And all the people that served on this committee. We were naive enough when we came in, we didn't think we knew it all. And so we listened every time we came here. And we listened to Alex and the questions, and it made us go back and reassess what we were doing and try to be better. And so I'm very appreciative for all y'all for what y'all doing for the students in North Carolina.
Thank you.
Yeah, and reach out if you, as you start getting to 11th and 12th, and I know you said you got a handle on the staffing thing. I mean, it hit us like a ton of bricks.
Okay.
We thought we knew a lot
Yeah.
more than we did, and all of a sudden, people became a premium in terms of both costs, both course offerings, competitively, as our kids were looking at different options.
Right.
And it became a much bigger task than if we had thought about it prior. So that's why I was asking. And
Sure.
if you need any thought partners in that, I'm sure you have people on the
Absolutely.
table.
Yeah, like Cheryl said, our school focuses primarily on the career and college program. And so, if you need any help with scheduling or anything like that, I'm at Chatham Charter. Feel free
Awesome.
to reach out
And
we can
actually,
share
one
our schools and stuff.
of our board members is the contact at Edgecombe County Schools for that. So,
That's
but
great.
that's great to have another resource to.
And a virtual public school,
Yes.
virtual school too.
Yes.
Is a good option for those specialty classes
Exactly.
you can't staff that kids really want to take.
Right. Gotcha. Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you
Thank
so much.
Thank you.
Right. Try to take this with me. All right, up next, we have another virtual report, because there's lots of those. So this is an interim virtual school enrollment report. As you are aware, the virtual pilot program has been a bit of a roller coaster. It was initially slated to end in the 2018 school year. Then it was expanded and now is authorized to continue through the 22-23 school year. I am not privy to what will happen after that, if it will become a permanent program, if they will just kind of, roll into our normal portfolio. But in 2020, there was COVID legislation that allowed both of the virtual schools to expand enrollment above the original cap, which was 2,592 students. That legislation was again revised in 2021. And so now it stands that both of the schools for the 2020 and the 2021 school year, so this current school year, shall be allowed to increase enrollment. North Carolina Cyber Academy by 1,000 students, so that would bring them to just about under 4,000. And North Carolina Virtual to 2,800 additional over the almost 3,000 cap. As part of that legislation, we are required to provide a report to the Joint Legislative Education Oversight Committee. I reported on this last March to the state board. I'm bringing it to you guys now so that we can bring it to the state board in February and March. And so this report is just basically fulfilling those requirements of the sort of things that the General Assembly wanted information on. So looking at North Carolina Cyber Academy, they enrolled 931 students above the cap. So what the report is asking for is basic enrollment on those additional students, which we call expansion students. You can see that Cyber Academy, the majority of those students were enrolled in the beginning of the fall term, and then also right now in the beginning of the spring term. For the grade levels, they've got a pretty even spread among elementary, middle, and high school, with the majority of those in elementary school. For gender, you've got a 48.9 and a 51.1% split between male and female. Previous school type, this was a little interesting because the two schools have pretty different data when it comes to this. So for Cyber Academy, about 9% of those expansion students came from brick and mortar charter schools. About 10% homeschool, 9% out of state, 59% brick and mortar, and then about 13% noted that they had previously attended the other virtual charter, North Carolina Virtual Academy. For student ethnicity, you can see, and the schools are fairly similar in this regard. So you can see that they have a majority of Black students and white students, and then also a large number of Hispanic students making up the student demographics. For their economically disadvantaged students, a majority of the North Carolina Cyber Academy expansion students did qualify for free or reduced lunch, so nearly 50%, or over 50% actually for free and reduced. And then about 42% either didn't qualify or declined to provide that information to qualify. This is required reporting information, so just the districts of residence. Both of the virtual schools are very similar in this regard in that they really draw students from all over the entire state, with the majority of the students coming from the counties you would kind of expect based on population, including Charlotte, Meck, and Wake County. For academic data, so obviously we don't have much for this term yet, but this is the information for the fall semester, and about 63% of their current expansion students were enrolled during the fall semester, and they've provided data on the NC check-ins. So they've broken it out by grade level, the percent that were enrolled during that testing window, how many were tested, and then their average scores. So you can see, for example, that the majority of them, there's not that many that are coming in at that, what we would consider like the level 1. And then it's really a spread between the grade levels and the scores we are seeing. And like many schools, and definitely with our virtual schools, most of the schools are seeing challenges with math. If we look at it here, you can see the elementary school grade levels are doing quite well with the reading, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, scoring quite well. And then as they get into middle school, the scores decrease. If we look at math, again, this is the area that our virtual schools have consistently reported that they struggle with in terms of increasing proficiency for math on the virtual platforms. And then right now they do not have the high school data available. They said that the high school students were tested based on their fall schedules, and less than 25% of the students were either not enrolled in a tested course or were not enrolled during a testing window. So this next semester will have more academic data. And then finally, this is also required reporting to the General Assembly. This is just their withdrawal percentage. So they had nearly an 11% withdrawal rate. This is also very similar to what North Carolina Virtual Academy sees. And as you can see, the majority of students withdraw within really the first 40 days, most of them realizing that perhaps this is not the best, is not the best choice for them educationally. All right, any questions on cyber before I hit Virtual Academy? Okay, so Virtual Academy, their board chose to cap their enrollment at 3,439. That was a decision in the beginning of the year, although they really could have gone almost to 5,000 based on the legislation, and that was a decision made based on making sure they had the staff to meet the needs of students that would want to enroll. So they enrolled 847 expansion students. And as you can see, the vast majority are in elementary school. This was a little bit intentional in terms of how many kids they had and the applications they had and the staffing they could obtain for high quality staffing. Again, gender is pretty closely divided between male and female students. Previous school type, this is, I noticed, just slightly different than what cyber reports. So for virtual, they say that less than 1% come from charter schools, where Cyber Academy reports a much higher percentage. They have about 7% homeschooled, 14.2% not in schools or other, so that would be most of your kindergarten students. Private school, 3.5%, and then almost 75% of them come from a brick and mortar public school. And they report less than 1% coming from another virtual school. And then again, your student ethnicities. This is also very similar to North Carolina Cyber Academy, where the majority of students are Black or white students. Economically disadvantaged, 45.4% are reported as qualifying for free or reduced lunch. So slightly less than what cyber reports, but fairly similar. Again, your districts of residence, very similar to cyber. It's all, as you can see, there's a lot of them across the state, and the majority of the students coming from our high population counties. They also administer NC check-ins for all students, so you can see their participation rates and their average scores. And again, you will see that reading outperforms, students outperform in reading as opposed to math. This is just same data on a different chart. And then in high school, they have Math 1 and Biology taking the NC check-ins. They are on a block schedule, so not all of the new enrollees are in either of those courses. So they have an average score based on who was taking that course this last term. And the Math 1 average is 44.9%, and the Bio average was 75.9%. And then finally, withdrawal percentage is 11.3%, which is also very similar to what cyber reports. And that's all I have. Any questions? Bruce.
You figured I'd have a question. I'm curious why not report I understand reporting the data on the new students, the expansion students, but for this, why not report like on this demographic data about like where the kids are coming from, grade level, ethnicity, why not report on all 3,000 students?
The legislation specifically asks for reports on the expansion students.
Okay.
Yeah. So the there will be another interim report. Well, actually, this is our second interim report. There'll be a final report in November, and that's the legislation has asked for just expansion data, but then there's a separate virtual school report that we do that covers the whole school as a whole. So this is just pertains specifically to that enrollment legislation that capped it. And as it stands now, they were allowed this expansion for this year is the last year, and then they are required in the legislation to offer these expansion students priority for next year, assuming that they have to go back to that cap. If they change the legislation again, who knows, because it seems to be constantly changing, but as of now, they will be back at the 2592 cap, and they are required to offer these expansion students preference.
Okay, that's helpful. I just the layperson may not pick up on that real quickly. That this is not data reflecting their entire population. It's just those expansion kids.
Just the expansion,
Yeah.
And we will need a motion so that we can send it to State Board, if you choose.
Can we get a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the virtual school enrollment report.
I'll second that.
Been properly moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
right, I think we are ready for applications. Melody's information, or materials up.
Good morning, Madam Chair and CSAB. This month will mark the final month for round one applications. This will round out the 2021 cycle where we actually received 21 petitions. And so for the month of January, or today, we have 4 remaining round one applications. Next month, you'll hear from the 2 second round interview boards, and then any second round that you recommend as a result of today's capacity interviews. Just really quickly, if we can go to let's take a look at the county demographics. So today, 3 of our applicants are primarily from that central Piedmont region. We'll also hear from a Wayne County applicant. So you can move forward to the performance committee. One more. And so we have our applications here with notated who the lead is for each school. And as always, the statutory and administrative code references are available at request by the Office of Charter Schools. So those are on the initial slides. We have 1 hour allotted for our interviews today. We can show that breakdown so we're aware. We'll have that opening introduction. The boards will then have their 10-minute opening statement. You all will deliberate for 25 minutes, followed by the applicant closing statement, and then 10 minutes to make your final deliberations. So if we look ahead again, the February calendar, we've got the 2 applicants from December, and then again those recommendations from today. We can move into the first applicant slide, please. West Triangle High School. This is a replication of Research Triangle High School, proposed for operation in Orange County. In year 1, they will serve grades 9 through 12 with 150 students, rounding out year 5, servicing again grades 9 through 12 with 600 students. West Triangle High School proposes to meet capacity at year 4. They will participate in the National School Lunch Program, provide bus services to their student body. They will use a weighted lottery for their admissions processes. Currently do not have a facility slated. There were no LEA impact statements submitted. They are not repeat applicants, and they will not utilize the services of a CMO or an EMO. Also did not receive any application assistance. Application was deemed complete at the time of submission. We do have a sizable representation from West Triangle's board today. Do we have Chair Ms. Sandra Cobbler here? Okay. In just a moment, I'll allow you to take the floor and make your 10-minute opening statement. So we have significant representation from their board of directors as well as their advisory board members here today. West Triangle High School does not have a zip code pinned down for their facility. So what I have provided to you is the current charter schools that exist in Orange County. It looks like we also, for a total of schools in Orange County, it looks like there's 14 Orange County LEA schools, along with 21 Chapel Hill Carborough LEA schools, but you do see Academy and then the Expedition School that are charters within Orange County. We provided a 4-county kind of look. I do also have the metrics and the schools for the surrounding counties. West Triangle does propose to recruit students from across this this 5-county region here. We have Western Wake there, and then we've got Durham County, and then looks like Chatham to the south, and then Guilford over to the west. So I, again, not knowing which quadrant of the county they will focus on, so kind of just taking that into consideration. But again, if you need the information regarding the charters or LEA schools within those surrounding counties, the Office of Charter Schools can make that available. But I will go ahead and turn the floor over to Ms. Cobbler, and she can make the opening statements for West Triangle High School.
First of all, good morning.
Morning.
And thank you for this opportunity to present to you today. My name is Sandra Rivers Kobler, and I'm the current chair of the Research Triangle High School Board. I've been a member of the board for the past 4 years and have served on the development committee and as vice chair. Approximately 3 years ago, I retired from Credit Suisse as a senior technology executive after a 38-year-long career that began on Wall Street as a programmer analyst, and that took me and that led to assignments, rather, of increased complexities and responsibilities that took me to places across Europe and Asia Pac, then back to New York, and then finally here to North Carolina, specifically to the Research Triangle Park. My experience let me just step back a bit. In terms of background, I have a Bachelor's of Science degree from New York University's Stern School of Business and a Master's from Stevens Institute of Technology. I'm a strong believer and supporter of Research Triangle High School and their personalized learning model. I've witnessed the impact firsthand with my son, Justin, who was the second class of 9th graders who attended the school back in 2013. RTHS had a tremendous impact on him during the 2 years he attended. And let me explain there. He was accepted into the North Carolina School of Science and Math, and that is the only reason why he left to go there, because it was an amazing opportunity, and the school celebrated that move. The foundation that RTHS and, of course, Science and Math prepared my son for really prepared him well for the rigors of university. And I'm proud to say that he's a graduate of Cornell University's College of Engineering, and he's gainfully employed, thank God, that's serious, as a software engineer, first with Google in Silicon Valley, and now with Adobe in Seattle, Washington. Okay, so the reason why we're here, around the spring of 2020, Alex and Eric first approached the executive committee about the idea of potentially replicating the school and to support the West Triangle community. And in principle, I thought it was a great idea. But given my background in corporate, I thought that, okay, this is a great idea, but now we need to do the work. We need you to go back, do the research, get the data, and put a plan together to determine whether or not it should be done. They actually did that. The other compelling reason that I thought it was a good idea was that Alex informed us that there are only approximately 5 charter high schools in North Carolina, which was quite shocking to me, because I just feel very strongly that there should be more schools like Research Triangle High School. Okay. I'm sorry.
Just for clarity, better standalone.
Standalone,
Yes.
right. Sorry, thank you for that clarification. And in addition, Eric, the current chief school officer at RTHS, expressed the benefits of having a sister school to partner in things like professional development, sharing some of his teachers, and also offering more advanced classes, which is not possible right now because of its sheer size, its small size. So I was sold on the idea, but as I said, with my background, I knew that we needed more information, and namely the research data and the plan. So advised Alex and Eric that they had to do their due diligence, covering the 3 areas mentioned, and then present a proposal to the full board, which they did. And over the past year and a half, They've guided us through this process and gathered and incorporated our feedback and insight. To start, we had 3 main guiding principles. The first one was that replication must not, could not, would not weaken RTHS Research Triangle High School. It spent 10 years, and had a very successful, and is successful. So wanted to make sure that it was a win-win situation, and also that all of the risks to RTHS would be identified, limited in scope, and manageable. The other guiding principle was around transparency. We needed to make sure that we understood the implications and the risk of replicating. And it had to be identified and clearly communicated to the board in order for us to make informed decisions. And last, the decision to replicate or not replicate had to be owned by the board, not Eric and Alex. So in addition, I proposed the idea of establishing toll gates, which is something that we use in corporate all the time to determine whether we should go or not, right? And the toll gates included identifying the key milestones, the timeline, risks and mitigations, and no-go decision points. This process employed a step-by-step approach that provided full transparency and enabled the board to make well-informed decisions throughout the process. There were 3 critical toll gates that we identified. One was secure funding, because as we know, funding for any startup, the initial funding is really critical, and we did not want to put any risk on the current school for funding. So external funding was really important. And unfortunately, over the holidays, we learned that the grant was approved. The NC Access grant was approved for this purpose. The second toll gate was identifying a leader, because again, we have a leader at Research Triangle High School, but given the tumultuous year that we had over the past year and a half, just an education period, we wanted to make sure that his focus was with RTHS and not with a new school. So identifying a leader in the very early stage of the process was again deemed a critical success factor. And this is supported by research done by the Fordham Foundation that listed the #1 risk factor for charter school failure is when charter school applications propose self-managed schools without a leader identified. So I'm pleased to share that Joey Webb, whose resume has been shared with you, has recently joined our board and is chair of the replication committee and is the presumptive founding head of school for for West Triangle High School. The last critical toll gate was around obtaining approval for an extended timeline. We believe that the challenges of real estate, especially in Orange County, and any building retrofitting work would be too significant to complete in 1 year. Therefore, we are requesting an extended timeline of 2 years. Okay, I was about to say 3 years. 2 years for the ready to open process. And we do recognize that this is not how the application process is currently structured. And if our application is approved, without this extension, we will still move forward, but we will be requesting a 1-year delay immediately to allow, to ensure that the work can be done completely and successfully. So with the steps that we've taken and the process we've employed, we are more confident about the potential success of West Triangle High School. That said, the first step is to earn your endorsement and approval. And we hope to receive this today and look forward to your questions and feedback on our application. At this time, I'd like to hand off to the primary authors of the charter application and the NC Access grant, Alex Quigley, who's our current board treasurer, and Eric Grundon, who is Research Triangle's co-founder and chief school officer, as well as Joey Webb, the chair of the replication committee. And there is one point of order. I'd like to request that Eric Grundon be allowed to answer questions even though he's not a board member. And I don't know if is that something that can be granted?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And again, I just want to thank you for this opportunity to present to you today, and we look forward to your questions and feedback.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you for those introductions. And to stay with our interview process, it's a 10-minute introduction, and so now the Charter School Advisory Board is going to deliberate and come up with questions, and then you guys will have an opportunity to address those questions that we have, and that'll be 25 minutes. And at the end of this process, there's one of three outcomes would be one that we would recommend the application to the state board for approval. To not recommend would be the other outcome for state approval, or bring it back for a second interview. So at the end of this process, it'll be one of those three outcomes. So at this point in time, I'd like to invite other.
Yeah, I have a question from the get-go, and it has more to do before we dive into the application. I guess Office of Charter Schools are legal. Are we able to approve from the get-go an extension? I'm assuming yes, because pretty knowledgeable ex-CSAB members part of this process, but is that allowed?
We have had preliminary discussions with legal about this. They haven't given us a formal answer, but there's nothing in statute that we are seeing that would not allow the state board to grant that request. We anticipate
But we would need to put that
legal
in
to give us a definite answer for this to get approved.
we would need to put that in the motion.
Yes.
Okay, so if we put that in the motion, and then we don't have the authority to do that, are they gonna have to come back and?
Yeah, my legal advice, non-legal advice would be that you put both the motion to state both options, whichever is allowed.
It would also be setting a precedent, wouldn't it, that any school could come before us and ask for a 2-year planning period?
Probably, but I don't think that's a bad thing, because that would eliminate
We can
coming
stop doing
before
the
us and
1-year
asking
delay.
them the 1-year delay. If you know already it's gonna take you 2 years.
So,
you
does
might
it
as well say so.
require the Office of Charter Schools to make a lot of adjustments to the timeline, since it's currently based on a 1-year planning period?
Some adjustments, but nothing that would be major. We would have to discuss what year they went through their RTO, what would they do their second year. But we have schools that are in delays that we deal with that anyway. Our office totally endorses it. We'd love to see that in legislation, that this could be one of the options, but they haven't done that for yet.
And dealing with trying to open a school right now too, and the supply, I would imagine you're gonna see more of these kinds of requests anyway, so.
Yeah, this could be a good precedent.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, I do have questions. Do we want to get out all the questions first and then have them?
Yes, that's it.
So just overall, I thought the application was very solid and replicating a solid school. I do have some questions about maybe some of the feeder patterns that you're projecting in terms of where your students will come from. Facility question. Do you have a question about the number of students in that first year, 150 across 9 through 12 with 6 core teachers? So I'm kind of interested in how that, just ninth in year one. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, then I take that back. I don't have a question about that. And then just, I appreciate the fact you guys already have a leader in place, and you want to be cognizant that you're not taking too much bandwidth of the current Research Triangle High School, but there's going to be some level of interaction and cooperation and coordination there. And so just a sense of what the bandwidth might be on the existing school to be part of the replication to help you succeed.
And I'd like to know more about your marketing plan. How you gonna reach all of those areas, all those kids?
I'd like a description of the philosophy of the school, metacognition. That's a big word. I'm a simple guy. So an explanation of that, as well as a discussion of, if that's the underlying philosophy of the school, how to motivate children that aren't motivated to take ownership of their own learning.
And some of my questions have to do with, one of the goals was the cash surplus goals that did not seem to be reflected in the budget. Cash surplus in your goals was year one, 150,000, year two, 300, year three, 500, then 7.5 and 1 million. But when I look at your budget, that's not what's reflected, so if you could just comment on that. Also, just comment on the other funds of 150,000, what that is, and when that will be, if it's a grant or if it'll be paid back.
I have a couple of questions as well. First of all, it was a wonderful application to read.
Yes.
And very thorough and well done. The narrative did say there would be 30,000 allocated for the National School Lunch Program for lunch, and it's actually 25 in the budget, just a $5,000 discrepancy. The facility lease, I don't know if those numbers, how true they are, but they're right in line with the percentages that you would hope that's healthy, least cost to revenue. I wonder what the other is in classroom technology. It's from 35,000 to 65,000 over the 5-year period, and it's called other. But other than that, I wonder where the STEM dollars are in your budget. You propose to be a STEM school, not called in the name, but in the curriculum. So where is the STEM in the budget? And the signature page makes multiple references to the planning year, and I thought that might want to be changed to the 2 years, the planning years. It's a
The planning years.
paragraph full of all about the planning year.
Yes.
I would anticipate that I missed this and that it's an easy answer, but some of the target populations as it refers to economically disadvantaged, I wasn't sure what the accurate projection is. So I'm sure that's an easy answer. With regard to the goals, I thought for a STEM high school they were rather modest. They stopped at Math 1 and Biology, which are 2 courses that students will take before even entering junior and senior year. So I guess I wanted some rationale with regard to why you stopped there, why wasn't it more ambitious with regard to APs or higher level math, and as well as some of the sciences.
Did anyone receive, I thought there was a reference to the school leader's resume or information that's not in the application. We do or not have access to that.
Is it on eBoard?
On eBoard, yeah.
Is it on eBoard?
The resumes?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've only posted the,
Mr. Webb, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
There are 2 resumes on
All right, if you would like to address some of those questions, and we may have more as
Yes, of course, thank you. It's good to be on the other side. And
So are you going to have transportation?
you know the answer to that.
there. Feed the children.
Spend all morning talking about school
Yes,
lunch.
and we will have free lunch.
And reduce.
I think it would be good at some point to, whenever Joey comes up to answer a question, if he could kind of just tell a little bit of his story, because I think just want to reinforce, as you all know, how critical the founding leader of a school is and how much derives from a charter school in terms of the capacity of the leader, and why I've been so focused, and we as a board have been so focused on trying to identify that by the time that we came before you. I also just want to thank our board. We have a lot of representation from our board, and I had told them they would get to introduce themselves, but I noticed that we now have the list, which is probably an idea that I came up with to save time. And Sandra had such a great statement, but we do have a pretty exceptional group that's represented, not just our board, but also an advisory committee that we're putting together. And to the question about capacity, the goal is to build out the advisory committee and also specifically have some representation from, I would say, the Orange Chapel Hill community, because we expect to draw students, a lot of our students from that community. Although I just want to stress, this is going to be a regional school. We expect to get students from all of those surrounding districts. There is a wait list at RTHS, but it is very much in the research triangle, and I believe that we're going to draw students from Durham, Alamance, Chatham, Orange, Chapel Hill City Schools. And it's one of the reasons why I feel so confident that the demand for this school is there. But we are built on the capacity front. The goal is to build out the advisory committee with expertise from the Orange and Chapel Hill community, just because that's where the location is going to be, as well as others who can advise us and guide us and provide support and do some of the grunt work and just the labor that's involved with school startup, and then potentially bring those board members, those advisory committee members onto the board, depending on kind of how things, how many spaces we have and how the things lay out from a structure standpoint. I want to hit if you don't mind, I could answer a couple of the budget questions really quickly. I am the finance chair, so I should know the answers to these. So the 150,000 cash surplus or additional funds is we currently have it earmarked as kind of a one-time loan or gift that RTHS would give out of their fund balance or cash reserve to WTHS as a startup fund. So part of that is just we know how important it is to have startup funding. That being said, we also have secured the access grant that's been approved by the state board for $1.25 million. So we feel confident that we might not actually need that, given that we now have been approved for the access grant, but that fund is there. I would agree with you, Lynn, about or Ms. Kroger, regarding the disconnect between the cash projected goals around surplus and what's in the budget. Obviously, the budget is fairly lean in the first year. I would say we believe that, yes, we built the budget based to meet the bottom line in the budgeting tool, but given HS's history with really in running a budget that's quite successful. I mean, the school has reached a very high, significant surplus in a pretty short period of time. So I think that's kind of, our goal is much higher than what we have currently budgeted, and we expect to kind of tighten that and find cost savings, particularly if we can hit our enrollment target. Our break even is would be 125, and if we were at that number, we have some positions in there that we would cut. So the director of curriculum, Joey, is quite academically strong and has a significant expertise in that area. So we'd cut that position out. We'd be able to cut some teachers out. But the school will absolutely end the first year on budget or above, and our goal is to exceed, which is kind of what the goal is stated. I think that was. Were there some other questions on the finance side?
Yes.
You had
where is STEM?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Eric answer that question when he comes up, and then I think the disconnect on the school lunch is just it's just kind of disconnect there. I think that can be easily corrected. For a person who's running a full school, when you try to put a budget together for a brand new school, as you all know, it's tight. And I think the school will definitely benefit from some partnership with RTHS on a variety of ways. So, for example, we'll be able to hold a recruitment session. There was a question about marketing. Hold a recruitment session at RTHS where we're talking about that it's a replication. And I think when you have the opportunity to show parents an existing school and talk and set that vision for a school that mirrors that, it's particularly powerful. I just want to quickly touch on Mr. Sanchez's question about the target populations. So our low-income target will be and after rereading the application that was submitted, I noticed there may have been some disconnect and really just frankly a mistake in the narrative. The target would be 30% low income, and that's consistent what we wrote into the Access Grant and what we believe is doable. That is a significant increase from what RTHS is at right now, although RTHS is a very diverse school. They don't have as high of a low-income population. I feel very confident in our capability to reach that threshold. One, Joey has a tremendous amount of experience, and again, I'm going to let him tell kind of his background in working with low-income populations. I have a lot of experience recruiting that student population. You also saw we have interest in articulation agreements from another number of charter schools in the area that only go to 8th grade, and that would help us attract that student population. And to the question on kind of preparation, one of the things that we've written in the Access Grant which is not something that's currently happening at RTHS, although it's something we've talked about, which is really building in a summer kind of extended preparation structure for students. Really, I have a son at RTHS, and he needed this as well, but to really a longer runway before they actually start school to get them equipped for the unique personalized model that the school provides. So that's one of the ways that we would be working to ensure students are prepared, even though we know they're still going to come in behind, particularly in the current context. But we know there needs to be some additional supports, and I think Joey can probably talk to some of the things that he did at Washington Leadership Academy in DC. So I'll let him come up, and we kind of hit some questions that I think he's going to talk about marketing and some academic stuff, and then Eric will be able to answer the question around some goals and what STEM looks like in the budget, if that's all right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have been grateful to be on both sides of this table in different states and also adjacent to it, supporting schools starting. This is my second time doing a charter application, and I think universally this is a really humbling experience. And to do this in this state that I'll get to in a minute saying I absolutely love it's an incredible moment for me. So thank you guys. A quick bio, because I think Alex really asked me to push on that for just a quick minute. I started teaching about 12 years ago in DC. Second year, won a grant to start using computers. That was just the very basic, go use computers in your classroom. I had a fellowship from the Amgen Foundation. They said, here's $50,000, use computers. And after a lengthy bureaucratic procurement approach, we got them in, and I started to use flipped learning as an instructional tool. And I saw the advantages that it immediately had for kids in Southeast DC. Almost 100% economically disadvantaged or farm, 100% students of color. It was immediate. The engagement was high. The ability for them to connect with content at home and away, it was there. And it was something that I just immediately began to believe in. Fast forward a couple years later, my wife gets into med school into an unnamed institution in the Triangle area. I don't want to create any issues. I have the opportunity to meet Alex, and I start working at Marine Joy. And Alex says, I want you to bring that into your science classroom at the 8th grade. And then we'll see what happens. The first year, I start using the same flipped model, gives our kids some more time to do content learning at home, or perhaps in morning work time. Maybe it's even during ISS or some other setting. It just made the access to learning, at least the minimal level, it was there, and it was incredibly flexible. It was probably the first time Alex ever said, go ask Mr. Webb if he can give a student a computer while they're in ISS. It's not something you're going to ask or say many times ahead of 2011. That same year, one of RTHS's co-founders put together a group of folks to do some advising on the flipped model, and I got to be a part of that. It was the first time I learned about RTHS. I became really enthused. I went back and talked to our counselor for our 8th graders at Marine Joy and said, we've got to at least make sure that Marine Joy students have a foot in the door. As spouses go, my wife graduated from, again, unnamed institution. She's an Army physician, so she went to Walter Reed in D.C., and that's where I went back to D.C. I was very fortunate to have a chance to start a high school. I don't know how to explain how the opportunity fell into my lap, for better or worse. But I got the chance to start Washington Leadership Academy. Very similar in principle. Lots of personalized learning, college prep academics, project learning, and a 4-year computer science program that was compulsory. Students took computer science every single year as a core part of their graduation requirements. Again, a huge round of learning that happened. I was lucky to be supported by New Schools Venture Fund, Charter School Growth Fund, City Bridge, and the XQ Super School Project, which was Lorraine Powell Jobs' $10 million investment in 10 schools. That learning experience was immense. Those are I can't even begin to conceptualize the 5 years of time that I had there, the things that I've learned. I do remember hearing a few friends coming home from a spring break trip in 2010 to say, there's this school in Henderson, North Carolina that's been it's amazing. I cannot believe how good this is. And we all just said, how do you do that? How do you even start a school? How do you, in a place that, it must be very difficult to start a school. Going through that process myself, and even having fellow, friends from Thurgood Marshall or other highly known schools in DC saying, don't do it, was it was an incredible learning experience for me. You guys want to know about the marketing plan. I recently bought an electric car. I live in Texas now. It's where my wife's stationed for the next year with the military. And luckily a friend of mine, I live in El Paso, luckily a friend of mine said, hey, there's this tax rebate that you need to have, that you can get when you bought this car. It's kind of a hidden thing underneath a lot of, it's hard to find, how to do it. And there's a limited number of rebates that they'll give. There's a degree of privilege that I have to have been in that conversation with a friend of mine who also bought an electric car to say, here's for you to access this extra rebate. In Austin, Texas, there are advertisements for this rebate. You don't see them in El Paso. Where you put the information to provide people where to access advantages that are provided by the government is a very, very big deal to me. In DC, our school was when we started our marketing plan, we didn't have a location. We just knew that certain students from certain sides of the city, specifically Wards 7 and 8, Northeast and Southeast DC, were the population that we wanted to target. So we went to those schools. We went to public middle schools, traditional public middle schools, charter schools. We went to churches. We went to basketball games. We made ourselves highly visible and present in the places that we wanted our kids to come from. I think I gave presentations to 73 middle schools or 8th grade classrooms, charter schools, traditional public schools, and made myself available so folks could say, I want to go to this school. We collected information. We reached back out to them. We said, we want you to come to the school. We made the demand for the school clear and also the desire to serve the broad student population. Our marketing plan will have that outreach. Our feasibility analysis has a pretty concentrated amount of students from Central and West Durham that should be able to access the school. I've heard Alex talk about his enthusiasm for busing for a long time. Where you put your bus route, where you promote your bus route, or you advertise your bus route will have meaning for families. So we will make those things very clear. The access to the school, wherever it may be, will be available to everybody. So that will include, I'm just going to be very tangible, that will include going to schools, going to churches, going to other community centers to say, we want to make this school, this opportunity abundantly known to the population of students that we seek to serve. I'm going to stop there, I think. Yeah. In 2011, maybe it's 2012, the Smarter Balanced Assessment was launched in North Carolina. And no offense to Alex, but I think our scores went from about 88% proficient to 37% proficient in one fell swoop. There's a couple of different mindsets that people take about that market correction on learning. One, I'm going to give Alex some credit. I don't like to, but he led our team to say this is the new standard. This is the new bar. In DC, they have an assessment called the Park Assessment, which I've never seen something more rigorous. And I was really lucky to get there, again, with a 2-year plan to start a school where we could address very rigorous academics. The average passing rate for the competitive schools for Washington Leadership Academy was 6 and 8% in math for the 2 high schools that most of our kids tracked from, and about, I think, 16 and 18% in ELA. Our school was 70% proficient in ELA and math for 2 years in a row. We had, in the context for computer science, we had it was a compulsory course, AP Computer Science Principles. I should have this off the top of my head, and I'm really sorry that I don't. Let's just say that the number of black girls and boys and Latinx black girls and boys passing the AP Computer Science Principles exam increased by hundreds of folds. There was no kids passing the test until our school started to take it. So we set a standard to say we can do this. We provided the coursework. We provided the precursory coursework the year before. And we represented the entire population of students of color passing the AP Computer Science Principles exam in DC. Sorry, is that a signal? Is that like are you telling me? Okay. So AP, to Eric's question about STEM, and I'm going to allow other Eric to come up and address it. I think our school is uniquely set up to be successful on AP programming in STEM courses. I'm also a huge believer in the AP Seminar and AP Capstone, or the AP Capstone program, which is AP Seminar and AP Research. All of our students took that course at WLA. We had a pretty high pass rate of about 35%, which for DC was orders of magnitude higher than other schools in the area. You can combine that course load with science topics. It's where students deeply research a topic in groups. They make presentations, they write long form papers, and the research class, they do it for an entire year. So I intend to bring that, at least thinking, to the school to make sure that students are having a lot of access to different modalities of applying STEM learning. Last thing, marketing plan, the questions you're asking, I just want to thank Mr. Machado for the endorsement of the 2-year plan. Currently, I work supporting a lot of school startups, whether they're Building Excellent Schools, City Bridge, New Schools Venture Fund. All of them are moving to a 2-year plan, particularly around giving marketing. Like, imagine having more time to go visit double the schools and build more energy. Another thing that is unique about our model and the way that RTHS was started, there was, again, me, a teacher brought in to give advice on how the school was started. And there were students brought in. When we start to build prototypes of the learning model, we want to see how kids engage with it. And so there will be tiny schools that can be done to say how are kids interacting with it. We get their feedback. They get to see what the learning experience is like. It helps them make a very informed decision. So I just want to really endorse the 2-year plan as something that we fully believe in. Set aside facilities, which is obviously the big monster in the room. There are ways for it to make, if we are active and intentional, we will make it work for us in a way that benefits kids.
At this point, we're out of time. So, but we do have, you do have 10-minute closing statements. So if you want to try to incorporate some of the answers to those questions.
I'd like Mr. Drummond to come up and just answer one of that question. Can you come up and just speak to a little bit about your motivation as well as the STEM, and then I can close out.
Okay.
We discuss first, don't we?
I'll keep it quick. After the closing. Thank you for granting me the authority or the power to speak on behalf of the school. I've greatly enjoyed my time as the chief school officer at Research Triangle High School, and I've learned a great deal about STEM instruction. I wanted to address a couple of the particular questions that were asked. One was about metacognition and taking ownership of leading. How do we encourage students, or how do we develop students to take ownership of learning? And that is really the core of what we do. The personalized learning system that we use begins with an intentional teaching of how to do school. We know as teachers that there are a lot of kids that get how to make school work for them, and then there are kids that don't, because they've not ever been exposed to those things. And so our system is built on a series of cognitive skills that transcend content area, and that begins in the 9th grade. They have access to a piece of software that allows them to see all of the work that they're supposed to do for the year, how to plan it out, and we have active discussions between teachers, students, parents
and mentors in order to help them do that. And we watch that grow every single year, and I think that it's reflected in the fact that our attrition is very low. We don't have students leaving because they feel like we're putting too much of a burden on them to be able to take on their own learning. I feel like any kid who can program a cell phone should be able to monitor their own learning throughout the school. So that's a big part of it. It's core to our 9th grade instruction, which is how we're starting at WTHS. And so we'll be able to transfer the knowledge and experience that we've had in operating the personalized learning system for the last 6 years to that group and be able to bring that across. So that's one aspect that I think is important to understand about that. This is a unique model that nobody else in the state practices, and we're very proud of the work that we've done with that. There was a question about STEM in particular and how STEM is featured in the budget, and it's not explicitly listed. I know that there are a lot of schools that would argue that they are a STEM school and make that a statement by having particular features, maker spaces or wind tunnels, robot labs, and things like that. And our emphasis at Research Triangle High School from the very beginning has been on a layer below that, the fundamental thinking about how science is done. We can certainly see that there is a great deal of controversy in the public today, both in public policy and in public debate, about the nature of science and how reliable science is. And so we want to teach our students to think, to be able to draw conclusions from data, to be able to acquire data, to be able to use technology to both analyze and also to speak cogently about the nature of science. And that's the way that we've done this at Research Triangle. This came out of the work that was done at the Contemporary Science Center, which was the founding nonprofit for RTHS that was founded. Pamela DeLizard and I founded that back in the early 2000s. And that was based on experiential learning. So having students, in addition to studying, playing, acting, doing science, and transforming their view of it. It's affective learning, which means we're teaching students not only content, but how to feel appropriate in the science environment. Science is something that anybody can do. It isn't something that you come out of the womb with your brain oriented in a particular way. And so we are oriented in that way. And so when you look at STEM and you look at the budget, we see that $18,000 for instruction and curriculum and texts. We don't need to buy a lot of textbooks because our curriculum is rooted in the software, plus we have our ability to bring our curriculum over from the school that we're working at right now. So in that first year, that's between $15,000 and $18,000 for essential classroom support. We have always at RTHS had a very high budget for classroom support, allowing teachers to be able to purchase the technology or the resources that they need in order to provide that STEM environment. And so we think that that's really important. Also, we're going to be able to train our new teachers at WTHS using the collective experience and wisdom of the science department at RTHS. We have nearly $17,000 in staff development in the first year just for the 6 teachers that we propose to hire. So that's going to enable us to have teachers working with us and learning how to bring the STEM thinking from the school over there. So it's not explicitly listed in the budget, but it's not explicitly listed in any of RTHS's budget documents either. It's just something that we make a priority as we build classrooms. So I think those are really the only 2 questions that I needed to address here. Is there anything else? All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you allowing me to speak today on behalf of the school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll close it out by just saying that, I don't have to share with you all that I'm a believer in charter schools and school choice and education. I think because and from a policy perspective, it provides choice and opportunity. And I think that despite a number of schools in the Triangle, there can be more, and there can be more choice and opportunity in this area that is growing rapidly in the number of children and students of high school age that will be in this area. And that's the policy reason why I wanted to pursue and work with this amazing board who have been very quiet, but I promise you, if you saw the list and you've seen the resumes, this is an exceptional board. And I've worked with a lot of boards and seen a lot of boards, as you all know, and this board is outstanding. And Sandra was nice about in describing how she grilled us about this application and about our idea, but she does not pull any punches. But this for me is personal. So my son is a senior at Research Triangle High School, and he was homeschooled prior to that and came into the Research Triangle High School community as a freshman. And I have seen over the last 4 years how he has absolutely come into his own, grown, thrived because of the choice that he was provided because of the academic program that was there, because of the opportunities that he had at Research Triangle High School. And I just desperately want to give that same choice and opportunity to other kids in the area. And I'm really proud to say that he's already received a 4-year Army ROTC scholarship to college already, and has just absolutely thrived at Research Triangle High School. So this is personal, and it's about just for me, and I think I share with other members of this board a passion for providing that choice and opportunity for as many kids as we can possibly provide it to. Thank you.
If we have a minute, can we have the board members introduce them, even if it's just 30 seconds? I mean, they traveled here to be with us today. Can we at least give them?
Yeah, come on up, everybody.
30 quick introduction.
Just briefly introduce yourself.
Get the mic really quick.
Hello, I'm Gary Rogers. I'm a senior IT program manager for Lockheed Martin.
And your position on the board too.
I'm former board chair and been on the board for about 6 years now.
Carolyn Koya, Vice President of Real Estate for the Research Triangle Park, and I am Vice Chair.
Steve Hunter. I'm a retired IDM Fellow and Executive, and I'm an adjunct professor at NC State. I'm currently serving on the Academic Excellence Committee.
Hi, I'm Mark Johnson. I've been on the board for 3 years now. I'm an internet technology consultant. I spent about 20 years at MCNC, which some of you may know, providing connectivity to education. I'm chair of the governance committee.
Hi, I'm Carmen Muggy. I'm a retired IBM executive. I've been on the board of Research Triangle High School 6.5 years, former board chair, currently development committee chair.
My name is Angela Cooper. I'm actually on the advisory committee that Alex referred to earlier. This is my 17th year in K-12 education and my 7th year at RTHS. I'm currently the director of educational analytics there, as well as teaching one of the math classes.
Good morning, my name is John Wood. I'm a digital media teacher at Research Triangle High School. It's my 6th year here, 15th in education, and I'm also on the WTHS Advisory Board Committee.
Good morning, I'm Susan Swafford. I have a career in nutrition and a master's degree in public health. I've been working with Alex on the advisory board. I live in Orange County, Chapel Hill. Thank you.
We had, I think, 3 members that could not come as a result of COVID, as you can imagine.
Thank you. I appreciate your introductions. And thank you for all your comments and answering our questions. Now I'd like to invite my colleagues in commenting on the application that's before us, and let me know what your thoughts are.
Well, Madam Chair, I feel confident that this school can be successful, and they did a very good job with the application. It was very refreshing to have read. But I would like to see more diversity on the advisory board and the board, because they're putting kids from different areas, different counties, and I think that would be a plus to add to your diversity in areas that are obvious. Thank you.
Well, I certainly think that it's a strong school that we will most likely move forward. I was surprised that, and I wish we had brought this up in the questions, that it looks like the one-to-one device program will be bring your own device. Maybe that's common in high school. Maybe RTHS does that. But I did read that in the narrative.
I can respond to the question. One, on the advisory committee, 2 of our advisory committee members are people of color. They were not able to come today. That is, as you all know, that's a huge priority of mine. And regarding the devices, that is the policy at RTHS, but there's a whole process for students to have technology loaned to them free of charge, and that will of course be the case. So a lot of students at that age do like to bring their own devices, but there's a very simple system through which they can access.
I'd just say that this is a strong application. In my opinion, this is a strong board. This is a school that, while they don't have the facility nailed down, it seems like they're purposely going to be in a location that there's going to be lots of feeder school opportunities for students who are even already in charter schools that may not have a high school option in the charter world, let alone the white list that already exists at the current school. I mean, I think we could dive deeper into some of the questions around curriculum and philosophy and all that, but I sit here and, you know, what are the things that we look for? We look for a board that we have confidence that can pull this off. They're replicating a school that's already proven they know how to do it. I mean, there can be tweaks here and there in the various plan, but I don't know what more we're going to ask of a applicant. So I want to support this school.
They have a real estate individual on their board, so any concerns about them being able to procure a site will be taken care of with their board member. And I do want to say that electric vehicle tax credits are poor public policy. I just want to make sure you know that. But otherwise, I have a lot of faith in this board and this school.
If I may, yeah, I mean, Mr. Friend laid it out. I mean, you have a group that comes in, they have some money and resources, they got a super board and advisory group. They have a known and established leader who went through his resume and has done a lot. And they're replicating, like you said, a well-established model, as well as offering food and transportation. I mean, when you said what else would we want, considering, especially the primary two speakers, and their rich history in educational equity, and with the knowledge of one of the things that was said up front of just the lack of charter high schools, freestanding or otherwise, and especially ones that serve economically disadvantaged kids. I mean, what more would I want? I wouldn't, and Alex and I are friends with a rich history. If I was sitting with Alex or playing golf with him, I'd say, Alex, boost that 30% up. You know, it just seems like they have so much infrastructure, and a lot of schools that serve economically disadvantaged kids don't. I would love to see that number higher. I'd love to see them enroll more, and I'd also like to see more ambitious goals. I heard the whole point about getting kids some introductory science understandings, but we've done some research in this ourselves, and we're trying to get there. We're nowhere near. And one of the high schools that we kind of model ourselves after wanted to boost STEM up in their school, and what they did was they boosted AP success, and it changed kids who majored in college from 5% to about a quarter of their kids were starting to major in STEM related fields in college just by doing that. And so I'm not sure you're going to crack that by doing Math 1 and Bio goals. I would probably encourage more ambitious and higher level goals. But I am a huge fan. I think the school's good. I mean, I can't wait to visit and learn and pick the brains of the people there. And I'm on board.
I kind of agree with everything that's been said. I agree with Eric, and Alex knows my passion for this too. The existing school is not serving a very large population of EDS students, but it's an opportunity that needs to be available to more kids. And you have the opportunity, particularly with NC Access and stuff, you have the opportunity to target a larger population of EDS, and being able to graduate with this kind of a high school education will make such a difference for those students and for generations to come. Like, it's a big deal. And so I would also encourage that you think seriously about upping that percentage.
I am willing to make a motion.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna say all along.
We need to make it two motions, right?
Do we need two motions or combined?
That's a good question. Do we need separate motions for the 1-year, 2-year, or can we put that all in one thing?
I would think we could combine them myself.
Okay.
So the language of the second part of the motion is that it's for extended to 2 years, or what is it? How do we say it?
I would think that if is, which the wish is to move this forward to the State Board of Ed, that you move it with the motions allowing them to do the 2-year runway, and if for some reason that is not possible, upon consulting with legal and state board, it has to be the traditional 1 year. That's what it is. That is a very non-legal.
You made that clear.
I'm gonna put a rough draft here. So I move that we move West Triangle High School to what, ready to open status, with the understanding that they need a 2-year runway to open, and then everything you just said. Like, if that doesn't work, I gotta say all that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And if that doesn't work, then they would just be approved for ready to open status.
I second that.
If that is not approved?
If it's not approved. If it's not approved, yeah. That's my legal name.
I would second that.
Okay, is there any discussion? And I just want to reiterate, yes, it is a very strong application. I'm very impressed. Okay, Ashley, would you like to do a roll call?
Yep. Terry Stoops.
Aye.
John Eldridge.
Aye.
Bruce Friend.
Aye.
Rita Hare.
Aye.
Lynn Kroger.
Aye.
Hilda Parlay.
Approves.
Shelley Bullard.
Aye.
Cheryl Turner.
Aye.
Todd Godby.
Aye.
Eric Sanchez.
Aye.
All right, it is unanimous, and we will be bringing application recommendations in March to State Board, so you guys will get an update at that time.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Now, can you tell us about that school lunch program?
How many buses you got?
1,000 a day.
25 or 30.
Where did Jenny Korn go? Where's Jenny was
Yeah,
here.
She had a meeting. You guys are real strict here about this.
Ashley, can we take a 10-minute break?
Sure.
Thanks.
I just want to say that the extended timeline should be an option and encouraged for all schools, so that I think we need to get that to change as a policy.
Glad you
Short
like
session,
it.
baby.
Applications have loaded.
It popped in one time.
Melanie Rackley, Office of Charter Schools. Our next applicant, first round, is Acuity Public Schools. They are proposed for operation in Granville County. In year one, serving grades K-5 with 300 students, rounding out in year 5, serving grades K-8 with 690 students, of which at year 5 they will reach capacity. Acuity Public Schools does intend to offer breakfast and lunch services to their student body and participate in the National School Lunch Program. They will provide bus services to their students. They will not utilize the weighted lottery. Their proposed facility location is in zip code 27565. There were LEA impact statements submitted in opposition to Acuity Public School. They were not repeat applicants, and they did not utilize the services of an EMO or CMO. Application was deemed complete at time of submission. We have the charter schools and LEA schools within the 6-mile radius of their proposed location here. One school which is in Vance County to the east, and then you have about half a dozen schools schools within that radius. We are joined today by Dr. Joshua Batchelor, the interim board president of Acuity Schools, and Mrs. Kendra Freeman, who will serve as the vice president. They also have representation online, Dr. Brad Jones, Mrs. Danielle Ware, and Mrs. Erica Rosenberg. You all, Acuity Board, you all will be granted 10 minutes to make your opening statements. I will turn the floor over now to you, Dr. Batchelor and Mrs. Freeman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Kendra Freeman. I am a resident of Granville County. I have 5 years of experience in real estate to bring to our board, and I'm here to serve.
Good morning. My name is Brad Jones, and I bring 20 years of education experience to our board, and I am ready to serve.
Good morning. My name is Erica Rosenberg, and I bring 6.5 years of legal experience to the board, and I'm ready to serve.
Good morning. My name is Danielle Ware, and I bring over 20 years of financial services experience to the board, and I'm ready to serve.
And finally, but not least, good morning. My name is Dr. Joshua T. Batchelor, and I bring over 20 years of educational experience and leadership to the board, and I'm ready to serve and to lead. By way of introduction of our board, instead of giving our long resumes, which we know that you have and boring you have to death, we want to just present today our 8 collective understandings as the board. Our first understanding, we have an unwavering understanding and belief that all children can learn and grow in a high expectation environment. We understand from all our impact statements, and yes, I mean all, that we received, all 9 of them, the focus of the district and their political friends remain more on the funding than the families, where marginalized students have fallen even further behind the data that we presented in our original application, which greater stresses the need for our existence and operation in Granville County. We understood the need for and have gained more community support. As of today, we have taken the initiative to increase our community support through a preliminary enrollment campaign, yielding 70 enrollments in just the last 2 weeks. We understand human capital is the driving force and a major concern in today's educational climate. Therefore, our plan for recruitment, retention, and professional development will be strategically intentional to extend professional opportunities to individuals inside and outside the educational profession, while leveraging one's past employees, teachers, and leaders who are experienced and certified and have vowed to join our network fully knowledgeable and accepting of the conditions before you in our application. We understand our academic program will create growth opportunities for students, families, educators, and leaders, and require great effort from all stakeholders to sustain excellence and promote excellence daily. We understand and accept our initial plan will have to remain flexible to meet the demands and the recommendations of the community, OCS, CSAB, State Board of Education, state and federal legislation, and all invested stakeholders. As the school leader, I understand and I'm well prepared for the heavy lifting required to open, maintain, and sustain a successful charter school. I am someone who recently opened a new charter school in 4 months, from fund acquisition, balancing the budget, instructional and operation procurement, contracts negotiation, building selection and open readiness, hiring and enrollments, know all too well how to utilize and maximize every second to ensure a successful day one. Simultaneously, in an entirely different state, I was also dissolving an A-rated charter school, returning it back to the local district due to the expiration and the fulfillment of a state takeover contract at the beginning of a worldwide pandemic. We understand whatever your decision is today, the outcome will remain the same. We will remain committed and dedicated as a board, ready to learn, serve, and fully knowing either way, we have work to do to serve the families of Granville County adequately and effectively. I present to you all today Acuity Public Schools of Oxford Board of Directors. We thank you for the opportunity to be here today and welcome all questions. Thus, we yield our remaining time back to your board.
Great. Well, thank you very much for being here this morning. I want to lead the discussion on behalf of my colleagues here. I think we next have 25 minutes on our end for sort of deliberations and to ask questions directly of you and fellow board members. So we'll go ahead and get started. What we tend to like to do is just so you have a sense of where we might be going in our line of questioning. It's just we can go around the desk here and just get some of the questions out on the table first. You don't have to respond to them just yet. But what are some folks that have any questions that we want to make sure our applicants answer or address today?
I do. I want more clarity as to why they would have 3 external audits the first year, then the second year 2 to 3 external audits, on down to their 5th year of 1, rather than 1 audit per year, external audit. And why would they need an independent evaluator to evaluate them, the board, as opposed to a self-evaluation?
Okay.
And I have others later.
They made reference to the high number of impact statements from the county and from people that, even the mayor. I think just giving them the platform and the opportunity to talk about why so many, and the critique is that their programs are no different than what the school offers. So just an opportunity to kind of speak to that. What is different?
I have some concerns about the numbers. To expect to take 9% of the district is probably not terribly realistic. Initially, 12% of all kindergartners is probably not terribly realistic. The transportation plan isn't in the app. Where the transportation plan was supposed to be, there's an answer to a different question. So what is the plan for transportation?
Brought up too in the impact statements is the lack of a transportation plan for students who live so far from the school.
I'd like more detail on how you will plan to serve at-risk students. And one of the only valid criticisms in the many impact statements that were received, because there were lots of misconceptions throughout, with regard to EC staffing, that the number of EC students that you're projecting seems to exceed the number of staff that will be able to serve that number of students.
Yeah, I wondered about the EC thing too. They're projecting 30%, but if you look at the budget, they didn't budget like they were planning for 30%. The budget says 38, so they didn't budget like they were planning for 30%. But but 30% is super, super high unless you're planning to run an EC school.
And to your point about the staffing, I have 12% and we have 3 teachers. EC teachers, there's 2 in the budget that I see. Unless I'm missing something.
And I guess,
And I-
go ahead.
And I'd like just, if you could comment on, you have 230 instructional days and very long days for the staff as well. But yet your salaries are only 40,000, so I'm not sure if you could talk about how you would attract teachers that are gonna work from 7:15 to 4:15 every day for 230 days out of the school year.
And get no benefits. It didn't include health care, there were no benefits for teachers, there were for administrators.
And the salaries don't go up either, it stays flat at 40 across.
I'll tag on that too, and they have Saturday school and tutoring after school. And get no benefits, no raises, but the head of school has a $20,000 increase in year 3 in the budget, so.
But teachers get nothing.
Teachers do not have any increases in the budget. Another, maybe a stipend for that tutoring, I think I saw something about that. Another question I have is the support. I saw 30 names submitted that totaled 32 students that maybe expressed an interest, but I did not see a strong level of support that we like to see. Wondered about 2 hours of homework for grades 6 through 8. I just wondered if that, with the long days and the long year and everything, to think that they would have 2 hours. Again, the salaries in your startup budget, the startup budget shows the executive director starts at $75,000. When the school opens, it goes to $90,000. In year 3, it goes to $135,000, or maybe by year 5. But the business operations manager actually goes down from the startup plan into the school year. I wondered where the one-to-one devices are. I didn't see that in the budget. There was 0 for classroom technology. There was 0 for software. So where's your STEAM budget? It's not there. And the child nutrition, I wonder if you could just be specific about how the funding is going to work with what you've allocated in the budget for child nutrition.
And then on the lines of the budget also, it seemed very admin heavy, but then there was no budget if you were outsourcing, finance and some of your other clerical activities, attendance, but then there was also no budget for a finance officer or clerical staff. So I couldn't tell if it was gonna be outsourced or not, but either way, there wasn't a budget. And also, when you discuss the enrollment, you discuss at length about the enrollment process, but there isn't any discussion about the lottery process itself in the application.
So let's,
I think it said no lottery.
Yeah,
We
let's,
don't have it.
so lots of questions, as you can tell. And so, and I know we have limited time here, so why don't we start with the question that Dr. Aldridge asked around, there were a high number of impact statements in opposition. That's higher than what we normally see. Doesn't make them valid, just more. So maybe explain a little bit about that, why you think that is, and the follow-up of what's going to make you different than the other options that exist.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity to answer the question. So we'll start with the impact statements. And while there's a large number of impact statements, the biggest question that everyone is asking is what is different about Acuity? Why is students going to come? Why are families going to put their students inside of Acuity? Acuity is a model that's like no other that's inside of Granville County. Outside of the Saturday school, outside of the intervention programs, outside of the teacher retention and recruitment and professional development, all of these areas work in collaborations to make a model that will go, as Darren Jones said, throw everything in the kitchen sink into ensuring that students are learning. I don't know, and as I do my research in Granville County, I've heard them say, we are doing those programs. We are doing what they're proposing in their budget. We are doing what they proposed in their application. Well, sometimes it's not about what you're doing differently. Sometimes it's about getting it right. Are you giving enough time for students to actually learn? Are you giving enough time for teachers to actually teach? And to answer another question, someone said, what will make a teacher teach 10 hours a day? Well, teachers are not teaching 10 hours a day. They are simply with students for 6 hours, and the rest of that time is for their protected time. 1 hour of protected planning Monday through Friday, something they do not get in the county. That, and then another hour for those meetings that they have, the SST meetings, the special education meetings, the parent meetings, that, and then duty-free lunch, and then the 30 minutes and 30 minutes in the morning and the afternoon. So they are not with students for an entire 10 hours a day. When I pose this to teachers who have already, as I said in the opening statement, have already agreed to come on board, they said, this is excellent because we don't get this. We have the expectation that we are to be with kids at all given times while we are on campus. We have planning time that we don't get to use because we have a SST meeting. We have a special education meeting. We have to watch recess. We have to go to lunch. But then we're expected to plan. We're expected to differentiate in front of our class. But you're actually taking the time and giving us the time throughout the daytime to handle this. And then on top of that, I am the type of leader at 5:30, whenever the school shuts down, that's what I expect teachers and leaders to shut it down to. Go home. Spend time with your families. If you've been here for 10 hours all day long, you should not be answering emails after 5:30. You should not be calling your administrator, and the administrator should be calling you. Everything should just go off and quits after 5:30. I also heard on that, in the same thing of what makes us different, I heard the question about, well, teachers won't receive raises. That is inaccurate. Teachers do receive raises. Teachers, our program have a 2-year residency where all teachers come in and they make $40,000, and each year there's a supplement what they would make. What's presented in the budget is after their 2 years, they are jumped up into a $60,000 salary. After they do 2 years as a as they do 2 years as an Acuity educator, they have the opportunity to become an Acuity master educator, where they will be able to make $80,000 to $90,000, which is also presented in the budget. And they are able to do this because what we want to create, what makes our program different and separate, is that we want to create a program where teachers can live comfortably and stay doing what they like to do, which is teach. We have too many good teachers who jump outside of the classroom for funding. We have too many good teachers who leave the classrooms because they can't afford the day-to-day living. We have created a program where teachers will stay inside of the classroom for as long as they want and get compensated for it. I heard the comment, well, teachers do not receive benefits. That is inaccurate. Teachers do receive benefits. Benefits are listed inside of the budget. It is listed, and administrators also receive the benefits as well. As a matter of fact, since the submission of the application and since the onboarding of our finance guru on our board, we have gone back and taken a different look at our board, at what we're giving teachers. At this point, we have redid our budget preliminarily to include 30 days of PTO for teachers. That is 10 days of sick days, 10 days of vacation, and 10 days of mental health. Everyone sitting around in this room can agree to one thing. Our teachers are maxed out. They need help. Yes, Acuity schedule is 200 and some days. Yes, it's a long and tiresome day. But at the end of the day, if we're not, as leaders and educational gurus, putting into place support mechanisms to help teachers, then we will lose them, and we'll continue to lose them. So my program is innovative enough where it is appealing to teachers to say, hey, listen, we see you, we heard you, we want you, and we want to make sure that you and your families are taken care of. Just to do what you love to do on a daily basis, which is come to work and educate. And I want to make sure that it is protected that you actually do that. Serving at-risk students is not easy. And as my evaluators have eloquently stated, it does take a lot. It's our students, as I said in the opener, the Granville County students are even further behind now than they were when I submitted the application. So it is going to take the daily intervention labs. It is going to take teachers working with teachers and being able to train teachers up in a particular way where they are able to differentiate instruction on a higher level and work with students, those small groups, having technicians. It's going to take all of that. It's going to take the MTSS. It's going to take the SSTs, but that also takes the time. And the biggest thing about Acuity is the time and making sure that we have time to do all of those great programs that everyone else says we do, we have inside of our school. They brag about it, but is it working? If it was working, there would be no need for Acuity. However, the data shows different. As far as transportation, as I fully hold accountability for not putting or transposing the transportation plan into the application. I did the application in a separate document and decided to swip and flop as I was doing and misappropriated what was supposed to be in the transportation plan. But here it is. So I have been engaged with First Student. First Student is working with their national office to see if Greensboro, which is their closest hub, is too far to transfer students from Oxford or Granville County. So they have offered a solution. They have said, if we are not able to move forward and bring buses to your campus and leave them there, of course, with sub buses and things of that nature, if the national office says no, we will help you purchase buses, hire staff, and train drivers. Even in a shortage, I asked the guy from Greensboro, even in a bus driver shortage, he said yes. And to go on top of that, I said, well, will you train my local board members and myself? He said yes. In a shortage, I want to make sure that everyone is holding and accountable, and we're actually out there being the role models that we want our teachers, our students, our families to be. Child nutrition is the same thing. We are looking at different contracts to ensure that we are able to provide those lunches that are approved by the National Lunch Program. The $40,000 that you see inside of the budget is after we have submitted our reimbursements for the lunch program, the National Lunch Program.
So let's take a pause there for a
Can I just ask a question? Because you talked about teachers, you didn't comment on the no benefits aspect
The
of
benefits,
that.
they are.
They're in there?
It's
Okay.
just not in the section
Okay,
where
sounds
it ought to be.
Well, then I do have a follow-up. How many, and if it's in there, I'm sorry if I missed that too, there's only because we're trying to redefine mastery teachers and that sort of stuff in the public school system as well. How many teachers, or what percentage of teachers could actually get to that 80, 90,000? You can't have everybody become one of those. I don't, or can't, or you're.
So it's a 24-month program for each level, right? So every teacher that comes into Acuity will start off at that bottom level at $40,000. Even the experienced teachers that I've spoken to and have agreed to come on at the $40,000 level, and they would spend 2 years in that program in residency. We call it residency. So they spend 2 years in residency, and they would go up from that point. They have to demonstrate a teacher performance assessment at the end of each quarter, which is directly tied into their professional growth areas. It is not just, we don't do or won't have blanket professional developments where we bring a host of teachers in and say, sit down, and I'm going to bring somebody in for 30, 40 minutes and they're going to talk to everybody about the same thing. No, that doesn't work. We want to make sure that everything that we do at Acuity is intentional. And intentionality allows us and allows the leaders of the school to be very specific in what the teacher needs. If the teacher is struggling with classroom management, their teacher performance assessment will be on classroom management. They will be able to use their day-to-day instruction to deliver how they have grown as an individual. At the end of 24 months, they are expected to be proficient in North Carolina teaching standards.
So, but hypothetically, I don't like hypotheticals, but you're saying every teacher could get to that mastery level of 80, 90,000?
If they do the work, yes.
And do you have the budget to ensure that every teacher gets $80,000,
yes.
$90,000? Okay.
And the budget is written that way. But we know that in certain cases, every teacher won't do it. Every teacher won't do the work. However, the budget is written in a perfect day, in a perfect world, every teacher will go and every teacher will become a master educator.
How is that tied to student outcomes?
So my dissertation research is actually in teacher effectiveness and showing that student outcomes is matched with that. And it shows that when teachers are well developed and well trained, student outcomes are they also match with that. They go up. So if you have teachers that's just doing regular professional development and regular things and just coming in, they don't really have great outcomes. However, when you put intentionality behind that and you say, Mr. Sanchez, you're struggling with classroom management. So for the next 6 months, instead of putting you in something different, I'm going to work specifically with you and the leaders of this school, and we're going to work specifically with classroom management. Student outcomes and student achievement are going to soar. As you pour into them, they're going to be able to pour into their students.
And what's going to be the source of this staff development? So it's I get it that it's personalized staff development. Where's that coming from?
So the staff development is coming from the leaders. So depending on where the teachers are missing, we also have Master Teacher that we can utilize. It's an online program where you can differentiate teacher professional development. Master Teacher, you can assign modules to teachers to help them. And in practice, go back and making sure that they are doing the module work, one, as a leader, and then go into their classroom. When you go into your observations, you should have a focus. What are you looking for? Instead of just looking for everything in the sky, as a CEO, I will be going in looking at everything in the sky, but my school leaders, I need for them to be focused and driven.
I'd like to take a pause a second. We have about 10 minutes left. I'd like to hear from some of the board in terms of some of the answers to these questions as well. So, because we're giving the board, the board's the one who won the charter.
Absolutely.
So, I'll start. I guess I'd like a board member to explain, just talk to us about what the educational plan is. What does a student experience? Give me an example of a student's day at Acuity School.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kendra Freeman again. For me, I'll start off with, I have a 2-year-old. So when this school starts, my 2-year-old would be one of the ones that I would like to go in and start with this program. A day of that would be as soon as they get there, we have our leaders and teachers there to greet them. They come in, they get greeted, they are welcome into the building and understanding that you are coming to a safe place. And me being at Granville County, I was born and raised in Granville County. So that is one huge thing that's starting off with not just being dropped off and finding your way to where you need to be. Going there and being welcoming. Once they get there, starting off with the mission. That is one thing that we have decided. Getting there, bringing everyone together, starting off with knowing the mission, knowing exactly what your purpose is going to be for that full day. With kids starting off at that young, you have to grab their attentions at the beginning of the day and knowing that they are there to learn, knowing that this is your purpose, this is your mission for today, and bringing that through. The next part of the day is once the teachers get in there and going through their day and starting off whichever grade level they're in, they still have their breaks, they still have their curricula, PE, and knowing that their lunchtime. Even with me growing up within the public system of schools, I have been able to look at the program and understand that I was not able to get that within my school system. And I went to 5 different schools within Granville County during my time. I was jumped from this school to that school because of that's the way the public system was, from West South to Cradle to Mayor Potter to Northern Granville to Webb. So knowing also that I could be within my development and learning the students and being there with the same students throughout and having that family and also having the parents involved. The parents involved was also another reason that I like it. you know, with me growing up, my parents were involved, but it was a lot of students that didn't get that. Were not able to grow within it.
Pause. The question was, what is the day in the life of a student?
Yes. So after like I stated before, after they come in with their mission, they'll go through their development part in class with their students, and then after the school, the teacher will break away with we'll have different people for the lunch period and also for PE and all of that to give the teacher their time as well. Once they are dismissed, then we'll go through that part with dismissing them together as a group as well.
How do you know, so what we saw from the evidence of public support, there was a question of, you know, would you support a school like this? And there were 30 responses. In the opening comments, it was referenced that you've got 70 enrollments. You really don't have 70 enrollments because you don't have a school for them to enroll in yet. You know, with year one, and just being candid, year one, you're looking at 300 students. That's not an showing us overwhelming evidence, in my opinion, that there's a high demand for this school. I mean, 30 people who signed a form, or however they submitted that information you provided to us, or in the last couple of weeks you've had more conversations. So convince us that there's a demand for this school.
For the community and getting out there to the community, it's more of a word of mouth right now. We're trying to let them know, with COVID being involved and different stipulations of how we're able to communicate and drive forces. We have done door to door when we're able to do that. We also have been communicating with different organizations. I know that for myself, we have gotten to the point where social media has been a big thing right now because of the not able to meet in person. So I've gotten a lot of that. Personally, recently, it's been like a word of mouth. I've been getting a lot of people sending me messages, emails, inboxes about how to spread the word to make more people interested.
Even with COVID, we're not on complete lockdown. So like in the last 5 months, 6 months, have you had community forums? Have you worked with any local organizations, whether it's churches or others, to kind of get the word out there about this opportunity?
Yes, we have worked with the Housing Authority. We've gone with them, and they had an event maybe like right before the holidays started. We went out there, spoke with a lot of parents that were very interested in the program. Like I stated before, we did do door to door during that time as well. Speaking to different parents and letting them know that we are coming to, and it's been very successful.
And so, if I may add on to that, so for me coming from Ohio, where a place where you are forbidden to get emails and things of that nature until you have your charter. It was very difficult until I had to contact the Office of Charter School and ask, is it okay if I run a campaign or a preliminary and gather after submission of application? Because in different states, in Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio, that is very frowned upon. Once you submit your charter application, that is it until you meet in front of your authorizer. So I wanted to make sure that I was in the legal ramifications within the state of North Carolina to make sure that if we're gathering information or going door to door, that it's okay with the Office of Charter Schools and also with the CSAP board. So with that apprehension, we did talk to a lot of people within that time frame of submitting applications, but recently that's when we started picking up email addresses, phone numbers, and those type things once we had the clearance that it's okay. You can get those things.
We're down to 1 or 2 minutes. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'd still like to know about the audits.
The audit question, why so many audits?
So our first core value is accountability. And we want to make sure the number one reasons charter schools fail, for the most part, is because of finances. We want to make sure at every given second that we have the accountability to our finances, including doing internal and external audits, especially those first 3 years as being a charter school leader, as you're moving and shifting, because even in the first 2 years, we may not be in a permanent fixture, we may be in a temporary fixture, have to do a lot of shifting, that we keep a close eye on to our finances so that we make sure that we're fiscally healthy.
Where do you project the school? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Where do you project this? You talked about facilities, and where in Granville County are you really on? Because I mean, it's a pretty narrow, but
So on Knox Grove Road right now, we are in negotiations and conversations with Cornerstone Community Church. They are looking to lease us 6 to 7 acres of land on Knox Grove Road. We will continue to negotiation depending on the outcome of today's meeting and moving forward with them. And then from that point, we are also talking with mobile modulars to put modulars there temporarily for the first 3 or 4 years.
So if the church property works out, you're it's not that they have a ready-made facility. You would actually be building a facility on this property.
Correct.
Okay.
They have 6 to 7 acres right beside the church.
Okay. Thank you. We're over time. Okay. Sorry.
I love Ashley's new sign.
I love that. I like the new sign.
I love Ashley's new sign.
So you do have a chance for a closing statement.
Oh,
That I can read.
So Acuity Public Schools Board of Directors would like to thank you for the opportunity. We do not take this opportunity or the work ahead of us lightly. It is our hope in your decision today, our board capacity to carry out our robust academic, emotional, and social plan will bring us one step closer to providing an equitable school choice for all communities within Granville County. We sincerely hope we demonstrate the passion, the knowledge, adaptability, willingness to continue to accept and implement feedback to ensure a sustainable implementation of the next high-performing school. We humbly present ourselves as a group of determined individuals, collectively ready to serve a mission larger than ourselves. Our mission, based on the feedback, revised mission, is to eliminate academic, emotional, and social barriers to ensure graduation from high school and preparedness for life. As we continue to say and demonstrate, we are here and ready to serve. And again, we thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for those that are on the call today listening in. I know that's a challenge. Okay. Questions, comments from CSAP members at this point?
Didn't quite get the educational plan.
Yeah, that's where I was.
As far as what is a typical day like for a student.
And I
wanted to hear more about the educational plan.
Yeah, I kind of came away with, I don't really know what the specifics of the plan are. I just kind of came away with, well, we're just going to do it better. And that's a little concerning.
I mean, I read the section, describe a typical day for a teacher and student in there. And there's not many specifics, but there's time in here, which is very specific. And I'm just a little concerned that teachers are going to, with this structure, teachers are going to get burned out and students are going to get burned out because, just for starters, teachers report to school by 6:30 a.m. Okay, they got to wake up. That's 5 a.m., 5:30, they got to get ready. So they're starting their day at 5 or 5:30 a.m. every day. And I'm just going to skip to the end. Teachers are released from tutoring at 6 p.m. That's great that they're offering tutoring. I think more schools need to do that. But that means they're not getting home till 6:37, and they got to wake up and start doing that. How many days?
230 days.
This is very, I don't know if rigorous is the right word, but demanding on the teachers and then also the students. For elementary school students, I think it's very bold, but I don't know what are all of your thoughts with just the structure.
Well, and also with 30 possible days off, that's a lot of substituting.
Yeah, that's right. Then the substitute, how much that's going to cost, and I am still, the budget, everything's in different places, but just knowing what it will cost, like the state's trying to do similar innovative things with what they're trying to do is that you have master teachers, you have different levels, and you get paid more on that. But the state's going to have to cap it because if everybody gets to that level, then it's just not attainable to afford it. And I'm just a little concerned about that aspect too. Is If every teacher gets to that level, you don't have caps. But no. Just the schedule, the daunting schedule, and the pay for teachers is a little concerning for me.
Can I bounce off that? If you're going to require those types of hours, you're going to ask veteran teachers to take pay cuts to go to 40 for the first 2 years. You're basically going to eliminate a large amount of people who could work here. People have their lives based on their budgets and their hours, so you're not going to get moms and dads who can't work those hours, who can take 20 grand pay cuts to start there, even if it's 2 years, and then they get this big bump. So you're going to decrease just recruitment and having, I run a school not too far from where they're proposing, and recruitment's real. I mean, it's real all over the state, but it's real in the rural places as well, even more so. So it's going to be very difficult.
What's a 20 grand pay cut for more days and more hours in those days? I think once a teacher sits down and starts working out what that looks like on paper, I don't know. That's going to be, to me, that's a heavy lift trying to get people to
Well, and at that salary, you're going to get mostly BTs, and then you are into the BT program, which is mandated,
And they don't
which
stay.
totally throws your whole staff development thing out the window for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I think that, I'm gonna harp on just the budget. There's a lot of the budget I just don't see has some holes in it, or just doesn't support to the amounts that they're gonna need to have. I mean, the first year, 300 students, there was an executive director, there's a head of school, there's a school operations manager, there's a dean. That's before we even got to the teachers, and for 300 students. And then I'm looking at I'm trying to figure out the math in my head about how it's budgeted for, where is it here? The substitutes, 10 days at $100 a day. And there's 22 days of substitutes budgeted for the first year, 33 for the second year, but we're hearing how they have 30 days off. The math to me just isn't adding up. And those are just a couple of examples. I don't think I feel. I would have liked to heard from the board that they can explain the education plan. I know what's written in the charter because I read it, but can they explain it? Can they articulate it? And I don't feel that I got that level of that the board really understands some of the finances in this education plan. The passion's there. I hear it. That's clear. But I'm left wanting a lot more than what I got today in terms of questions answered.
I was a little surprised. I looked at some of the resumes here, and specifically some of the experience they had. I was surprised we didn't hear more about previous experience and more research-based pieces. Like, hey, we've done this I see Rocket Ship here. We've done this over here. Here's how it worked out, right? Because it sounds a lot. In theory, we want to support innovation, even if it makes us uncomfortable. We don't want everything to be tied to this one way of doing things, but you got to give us some basis for how it's worked out or why it would work. The days off thing, everything seems slightly in conflict too. If you're going to do 30 days, but yet you're promoting this master teacher program and this differentiated learning, you're going to have so many gaps in instructional capacity around your building on a regular basis. They seem almost in conflict with what you're trying to achieve. You're almost losing some of your investment by having people come from 6 to 6 and push all of this curriculum and all of this stuff to catch kids up and everything, but then have this complete revolving door of substitutes that are not getting, I would assume, the 2-year intensive program, for that. And I know we all deal with it, right, with subs and things like that, but you're almost promoting it in some case, take your 30 days, right?
Yeah. Well, and if in fact you feel like people need that much mental health time and stuff, then cut the school year back. Don't have them come to school for 230 days.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Falkenberg makes a good point too on just the day. I didn't get a good answer to the day of the life of a student, but I seem like I have a pretty good answer to the day of life of a teacher, and it's time consuming. And I realize if we approve this school, you're 2 years from opening, but as someone who runs a school right now, if I told post-COVID, I told my teachers this is the schedule we're going to work.
Yeah, that's not happening.
At starting off with $40,000.
Yeah, and to Mr. Falkenberg's point, if you have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you have children, unless they're going to your school, the child care issues, you don't get off till 6 o'clock at night. You got child care issues.
Yeah.
You can't go to your kids' games. You can't you literally your whole life is this school, and you can't support your own family.
That's what I'm saying. None of those types of people would apply to that type of job. I'll say one last thing because I've been talking a lot. I do like some of the theories behind some of the things there. This is again, I think there's a lot to be left here, but we do compensation models for people who stay at our school and get to certain places where they can, in order to keep our best people. I like the thought process of people coming in and they run through this very differentiated PD schedule and can achieve certain status in order to get different compensation. I think that's a good way to keep some of your best and most accomplished teachers. I do like that he's thinking about some of the extra stuff that it takes to catch kids up, and I do like that there's this thought, even though it seems in conflict again, I just think a lot of the applications in conflict, that you're thinking of the mental health of your staff, even though the environment you're creating is going to actually create the mental health issue. But I do like it in theory. So I think there's a lot to work on that could come back. And I do give latitude to the fact that various board members can't get to the nuances of the school if there is a member of the board, which I would consider the gentleman who spoke initially, to be able to speak on it. So I don't hold him for that necessarily. If he's
Except he's going to be an employee.
But he started off. In my application, I was on the board. I was the guy who spoke most of the time. That's what I did, right? And when any academic questions came, went to me and my wife, who were both active members of the board to start. I'm fine with that for this purpose, I guess. I don't think everybody needs to be able to tell you every minute that a kid does. I would differ with that kind of. And I don't know if we do that with all groups. I don't know. I've seen some management organizations do more of the talking, and the board, you ask them what's going on, they're like, NHA tell me, or Chuck Williams, you tell me. I've seen that a few times. So I did.
Yeah, I certainly recognize the passion. I just feel like there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the application. With the budget, there's a lot of things that we're missing. And again, just re-looking at the day for the teachers. And then just the demand. I'd just like to see a lot more support on that there's actually going to be students that are interested in enrolling. 12% in kindergarten is a heavy lift. Seriously.
And I'm only going to add this to the conversation because I'm sure there'll be a motion soon. But unless I missed it somewhere in the application, just looking at the budget again, there's no counselors, no social work. There's and you're going to have kids there that long, that amount of time, and you're going to need to. Even before COVID, there was a need, but after COVID, there's a definite need. Just for some food for thought in the future for this group.
And look at, there's no budget for maintenance, no budget for classroom technology. Just seem to be a lot of holes in the budget.
Yeah, it's a STEAM school or STEM. I think they use both phrases, both acronyms. And classroom technology is zero. Mm-hmm. You just can't explain that. It says one-to-one devices, but there's nothing for device, nothing for software. It's not in the budget.
Yeah, and I did hear the gentleman talk about, I think I heard that you had done some work since the time you submitted this on the budget. That's good. Just understand that we can only make our decision based upon the information we have that was presented as part of the application. So if you went back and since the time oh man, now I wish I would have put a counselor in there. It's like, That's not what we're looking at.
And I don't want us to, I know we've been berating on it, but I think their intentions are well here.
Yeah.
And
And I
obviously,
think there's some good stuff.
there's some really good, I mean, there's some stuff in here, I'm not gonna go through it all, but there's some stuff I go, I wish this was in all schools right now. But I think this just needs an opportunity to be worked and massaged and then possibly come back at another time once it's all figured out and hashed out. But just the structure is, just the school day itself is very, problematic for me.
And I don't know if you're currently working in a school, but for this year, post-COVID, teachers are white. And this day would be that we're seeing increased absences just with what the traditional stuff that we've always done, and people who have always come to work but now are taking mental health days because people are white. And I just think with 30 paid days, I think you're just going to spend most of your time covering classrooms.
I told you guys I have a school that's not far from here. We were thinking about expanding, and this is the area that we identified after doing some really advanced research and hiring a group. So the need is there, and they need a school that's serving economically disadvantaged kids there. That's 100%. That Granville County needs it, and specifically Oxford. I'm a stone throw away from you guys, and reach out if you want to talk.
Let me just follow up with a comment about the impact statements. Some of them contain complete lies and misrepresentations, statements that were not in the application. Honestly, people could send 900 impact statements opposing a charter school, but if they do so, they better get their facts right.
Yeah.
Then some of these impact statements are nothing more than belly aching, and I expect better of our elected officials.
Well said.
Oh dear.
But Granville has been hit hard by schools that are not trying to serve all kids. I hear you, and you're 100% right. And that's why they're doing it, because they were hit hard, which just feeds more into the point that we need a school that in this area that does serve economically disadvantaged kids.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion on Acuity Public Schools?
Okay, I'll jump out there. I would move that we not move Acuity Public Schools forward to ready to open status at this time.
Motion not to move them forward.
I'll second that.
Second, any further discussion?
I would mention that the window for the 2024 year is currently open and will be open until I think April. I think Ashley, is it April?
It opens
It opens the end of this month.
January 20th.
It opens at the end of this month and will be open, I think, until April. I would take this back, take the feedback, look at do whatever you did to your budget, and resubmit it. It seems to be pretty much the general consensus that everybody thinks the schools need it. But we can only vote on what you hand us. And so that's got to get fixed to the place that we could vote for that.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Welcome to see you back before us again next year, and maybe take up the offer of Mr. Sanchez and others that might be able to kind of work this budget a little bit differently and the school day differently, and still accomplish the goals that you have. Okay, Ashley, you want to take a roll call?
Yep. Terry Stoops,
Aye.
John Eldridge,
Aye.
Bruce Friend,
Aye.
Rita Hare,
Aye.
Lynn Kroger,
Aye.
Hilda Parlay, Shelley Bullard,
Aye, sorry.
that's okay. Cheryl Turner,
Aye.
Todd Godby,
Aye.
Eric Sanchez. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have 12:06, so yeah, we're a little ahead of time. We have a lunch break until 1.
Until blank?
1.
Oh, okay.
So let me hit the mic.